How you going? I'm Honorable Dr. Joseph Randolph Bowers, and I don't often talk about this, but the honorary title comes from a distinction that was awarded from the Australian Counselling Association for years of dedicated service to co-founding the counseling profession in this country, particularly co-founding the first international online open access research journal that was sponsored by the Australian Counselling Association quite a number of years ago, and that journal has survived and transmuted into new incarnations, and it's still going strong under a very beautiful and a robust editorial team and leadership, and I'm so proud of them, and I stand behind them every day. It is so good to see progress within the counseling profession because the work that we do is dynamic and important and has a huge influence in people's lives. I think that the topic of the conversation today has come up from people who have contacted me over time, and periodically, every few months, actually, I get an email from someone inquiring with questions about what kind of counseling course should I do and what should I look for? How do I make the huge decision to invest in a counseling course? And it's a really difficult topic to open up over emails because you really have to understand where a person is coming from. And you have to know a bit of the context and what they really hope to gain from taking a counseling course. For some people, studying counseling is a personal development decision that really comes out of their motivation to change and grow and to develop their own skills, their communication capacities and their relationship skills and their conflict resolution skills and their ability to listen, their skills of listening and empathy and compassion. And these personal and social qualities that we desire to develop in our life can be really moved forward in concentrated ways through counseling training. There's another dimension to counseling training that involves the professionalization of my personal skills towards a more social enterprise, a social task and role as a professional counselor within society. And this has evolved over the last several generations, and particularly over the past 20 years or so. The counseling profession has grown across the Western nations, throughout Europe, North America, and Australia, New Zealand, several countries around the world. Also in Asian countries to a great extent. I used to teach in Hong Kong in the first ever counseling program, a Master of Counseling in Hong Kong. It was a very exciting and dynamic time when the counseling profession emerged to define the Asian Pacific orientation towards counseling training and towards the integration of the Asian and Western philosophies and approaches to counseling and therapy. I think there's still a lot of work to be done in so many of these areas and how counseling is still evolving as a cultural phenomenon as well as a profession. So there is a whole range of considerations really that we need to take into account. In light of all of that context, I've offered up about 12 or 13, a baker's dozen of concepts and ideas to think through when you're considering a counseling course, not just in Australia. This is applicable to any country, really. These are key principles that will help you, and I encourage you to take a stepwise and work through these processes. Perhaps engage in personal journaling with each of these questions or areas of consideration. Think about your answers and think about what you want to gain. And I think the more that you do that exploration for yourself and then match that to the research findings that you are able to obtain from online searches. And we live in an amazing time where we can look up all of these things online now and explore them through the websites that are available from various universities, counseling colleges, counseling institutes, private counseling programs. And, the information is it's so rich. I think that part of the struggle that people have right now is filtering through all of that detail and coming to terms with it. And I think that people in my role and that what we're developing at awakenability.com is a way of curating and filtering the noise so that we can get to the heart of the matter and look at particular training and skill building and capacity building projects that engage with people's personal and professional motivations, their core intentions. They're getting back to that vision and feeling and passion that we had when we first entered the profession, I think is what we're capturing in our more consultancy training and engagement online. And in any case, we have to start from somewhere. And training and counseling often begins at the more fundamental levels. So choosing a counseling course, I might say, involves considering several factors to ensure that it aligns with your individual needs and preferences, your goals, and your hopes for the future. Your career goals and your educational goals overlap in a lot of ways in this sense. And there are a number of ideas that we can explore in how to guide you through this process. The first step is defining your career goals. Start by understanding your own personal career goals and your aspirations. Take a look at that. Do some journaling. Sit with it. Have a cuppa. Talk with your partner or your close friend about your desires to move forward with your life and what you would really like to accomplish. Write that down because it could really help you in the years ahead. And when you're in the trenches, if you do enter a counseling program, there's a cycle that all students go through in learning new skills. There's the beginning stage of excitement. There's a middle stage of doubt, confusion, and fear when we start to deconstruct our own ideas and concepts, our values come into question. We realize how much we don't know. And then there's a consolidation phase that is the third element of most programs that people go through. And that's when we integrate our new knowledge into our skill base and our capacities. So by your defining your career goals early on, you'll set an intention that is very powerful and energetic and will sustain you through the struggling period that you might go through when you're learning new skills and going through major change. Focus on specific areas, such as, are you interested in clinical counseling in the sense, are you interested in the more psychological components of looking at assessment and diagnosis? Are you more interested in the interpersonal and the personal development components of counseling? Would you be more interested in school counseling and working with younger people? Are you interested in relationships in the sense of marriage counseling or family counseling or constellation counseling, where we look at the environment of relationships and the ecology of how people live within relationships, not just with each other, but within an ecological framework? The second topic here is to look at accreditation and recognition. Check whether the counseling course is accredited by the relevant bodies in your country and your state. Accredited courses often meet quite high educational standards. This is also why they tend to be a lot more expensive. So you need to think through the decision because it's a major financial investment. Are they recognized by the professional associations that you want to join down the road? Think about that carefully, because if you find yourself in a program that's not accredited, it may not apply to your ultimate goal of joining a professional association that enables you to practice. This enabling to practice is important because when you become part of a professional association, you can get public liability and professional liability insurance coverages. These two types of insurances cover your practice and enable you to give an assurance to the people that you work with that you are working to the highest standards and that your work is based on evidence-based research and on the best known approaches to the various ways and means that we work with within the counseling field. Course structure and content is the next area to consider. Review the course curriculum to ensure that it covers the areas of counseling that you are interested in. Look for a program that offers comprehensive and well-rounded education. This is a really important consideration, particularly where programs are accredited. They have to maintain a certain core curriculum. But around that core curriculum that's set by the accreditation bodies, they can have wide range of diversity and different focuses. For example, some programs might focus on relationships, others focus on personal development, some might focus on trauma recovery, other programs might look at working with addictions or eating disorders. Other programs might focus more in on aging and developmental processes. Certain programs really focus in on the educational aspect and on childhood development or development through the lifespan. There's now courses that specialize in aged care and counseling within aged care settings. There's a whole range of different orientations and specializations that have emerged over the last decade particularly. And so you need to do some shopping around. And in order to do that, you have to clarify these questions for yourself. The fourth area is the delivery mode. Consider the preferred mode of study that you would like to work with. Some courses are full-time, others are part-time. You need to look at how long they take to complete and how long you can realistically take to work through them. And you need to look at the courses with online study components. And perhaps you want a course that's mostly or even fully online. Choose a mode of delivery and a length of study and an intensity of study that fits your individual needs, your schedule, and your learning preferences. And this has a lot to do with your understanding of your own lifestyle needs, your family responsibilities, your existing job and workplace responsibilities. If you're taking the study part-time while you're maintaining a full-time job, you're going to need to use a lot of your weekends and holidays in the study mode. And my goodness, you're going to need some flexibility then in accessing the materials. So you probably want to look at a mostly online program and maybe with some face-to-face components where you can meet with the lecturers or professors on campus or in some study setting. Or often now programs have engaged online communication modules where you will work with somebody online, like you're working with me like right now, but in a more interactive way through webcams and conferencing and Zoom meetings. You can work with your faculty in these ways in a very dynamic process that is really actually confirmed by the literature as being just as valid and in some cases more helpful than face-to-face learning environments. It's a very interesting time now. We see in the literature some major forwarding outcomes through distance learning and online education. It is a very exciting time of change and development. So the next area, the fifth area we're looking at, is practical experience. Look for courses that incorporate practical experience. This is really important, actually, such as internships, placements, or supervised counseling sessions. Practical experience, especially in counseling, is really crucial for developing counseling skills. It's one of the, I think, defining characteristics of the counseling field compared to psychology and clinical psychology. Counselors have traditionally received their practical training from day one within their programs, so that by the time they graduate, those counselors are highly skilled already. And often a clinical psychologist graduating with a master's in clinical psychology will then afterwards get their more clinical counseling practical experience. So in a sense, counselors can be way ahead of the game when it comes to core training in the micro and macro skills of counseling, communication, interpersonal skills, of relational skills, conflict resolution skills, also the development of at least the early stages of empathy and advanced empathy and of intuitive capacity. I think these are central to counseling training. The sixth area is faculty and resources. Faculty and resources is really about your evaluating who you're going to study with. You need to think long and hard, actually. You need to look at their reputation, find out maybe some consumer reports. It's a little bit more difficult area in a sense. Facebook might help. Social media may help. You need to find out what's the reputation of the school. What's the standing of their faculty? You know, if you're not going to a school with a big name like Harvard or one of the major universities, there's other layers of considerations you need to look at. And don't be fooled by the major reputations of universities either, because counseling is a human services field. And that means that you might find a program that has one or two people who are deeply passionate and whose career stage is where you need them to be at the time that you are with them. You need them to be engaged and passionate about your development. You need them to be there for you when you have questions or concerns, and when you're in that midst of struggle and learning, you know, it is not easy. You need faculty who will go to bat for you and who will literally fight for you if they have to within the structures that exist, because all institutions, all universities, all schools of learning are self-perpetuating in one sense or other. And they build up rules and routines and standards that become detached from their original intentions. And you know what? All rules and standards and methods are first created for human beings. They're meant to serve our needs as people. And when a program falls off the rails, it means that the standards of the program, its vision has been kind of lost a little bit, because the standards outweigh the students' needs, the students' desires for learning, the students' needs for transformation. Transformation within the learning journey is central. And if a program or a mode of study or a lecturer or a professor have lost the taste for that, dynamic of transformation, then they're not worth working with anymore necessarily. They may have an accumulated knowledge, but so does ChatGPT. You might as well just go online and talk with an AI. What is the point in working with a counseling faculty member or a counseling mentor if they're not passionate about what they're on about? If they're not there for you as a human being to a human being in the midst of that struggle of life. This is what we look for the most. It's human connection. And especially in this day and age, it's really important. So, faculty and resources. Research the faculty. Research their expertise. Consider the resources that are available to them and to you, including what do they have for libraries? What is their collection like? What is its emphasis? When was it started? How long have they been collecting resources? Are there counseling labs? Are there places where you can set up video sessions with the people that you're practicing with, whether they're co-students or other people in the community who have volunteered to do counseling practice sessions with you? Can you go in and make a video in a counseling studio? Could you use their technology? Could you access computers within the library system? Is there a supportive learning environment? Is there a student commons where you can meet with other students? Is there a way of meeting with the counseling students online if you're doing a 100% online program? Is there like a Facebook group or a private group that's set up on the website of the school? Often schools like to steer clear of public social media platforms like Facebook, and we're similar to that. We have an online community with awakenability.com where our students can collectively gather in a private space without any of the distractions that exist in the Facebook and other platforms. So that gives them some concentrated space, and they can communicate freely with each other and share ideas, and they can talk to us as their instructors and mentors and coaches. Number 7 is to look at the reputation of the institution. The reputation of the faculty, institution, school, whatever we might want to call it. We call it an academy. Ability Academy Australia is a name that we've affectionately come up with for our project that looks at personal and professional development. And we're not an accredited program, by the way. We focus on individual growth. And in that sense, our programs can be applied to professional development, but we don't have them formally accredited through professional associations at this time. We may consider that in future. But at the moment, our emphasis is simply passionately creating courses that actually make a difference and that build skills and capacities in people's lives and that meet real needs that are being talked about and asked for right now amongst the people that we work with. So it's a very timely process for us, and it's pretty exciting. But you need to check out the overall reputation of the educational institution that are offering the course that you want to take. Look at their reviews and rankings. The rankings are through various means, through their Google presence and what you find online, but educational institutions in particular will also have specific rankings and will be accredited by various bodies that will give them certain scores, so to speak. And you can look at those different frameworks to help you get a sense of where they sit. Get some feedback from current or past students. I think that's a really great idea. And I think that's where social media might help you out a bit more. And often schools and programs, at least the formal ones and the university ones, they'll have an alumni, and it's usually possible to contact the alumni groups. And there's alumni groups on Facebook. I know that much for sure. And there's other ones that are more sort of online in different formats or different places. The American schools, for example, have alumni associations that are pretty active and support the university through various funding programs. And so it is possible to look up and find out who's studied in this place. What are they doing now? Are they successful? And just give them a call or send them a text or an email or a message on Facebook and just say, look, I'm thinking about taking a course from this place that you've graduated from. What's your opinion? How are they going? What are they like now? Have you heard any news about how they've developed since you graduated? Those sorts of questions can be quite useful. Professional connections is the 8th consideration. Consider courses that have strong connections with professional counseling organizations and networks. This is really useful to understand as well. For example, the networks can involve also volunteer organizations and relief efforts within society. When society hits a crisis, often counseling associations and counseling schools will provide expertise and will help the community to get through that crisis. So take a look at that and do some research online as well when you're looking at things. For example, bushfires, forest fires, and droughts and floods and a whole range of natural disasters as well as social scenarios that counseling groups and alumni associations and schools and programs have engaged in these situations in quite a dramatic way. You can look that up. This can provide a valuable networking opportunity as well for you to kind of get into those circles in a sense and get connected. Also, while you're a student and post-graduation, the 9th area is cost and financial aid. You need to evaluate the cost of the course and if you can really afford it, whether there are available scholarships or financial aid options. Student loans, for example. Consider the overall investment in education and how you'll pay that off. Will it be a difficult burden to take on that debt? Or is there other ways that you can be creative and entrepreneurial as a counselor and therapist? Start thinking early on about the entrepreneurial levels of counseling as a business. Often people overlook this component, and it's a really important component. I've developed this a lot over my career, this consideration. In the early days of my career, I maintained a private practice while I was getting my master's degree in counseling. And it was an exciting time because I was also setting up my first business. And that taught me so many important lessons about how we work with people, what their perceptions are, how we meet people's needs, and how we need to articulate that in some way and give people a clear sense of what we do, what we can do, what we can accomplish, and what is accomplished in the therapy process and how important that is. These give the quality dimensions to the work that we do with people, and it's often overlooked in that more clinical and social services side of things, in that consultative, professional side of the culture of counseling. We don't look so much at that business component and that marketing and articulation of the strength and importance of counseling as a service that is worth being paid for. The 10th consideration is the location of the program. Consider the location of the school or academy that you want to work with. Some individuals may prefer studying in specific cities or regions or various places, for example, including the proximity to potential job opportunities. And you need to think that through when you are working through your program. Online programs are a lot more flexible in that sense. But if your program is situational, geographic, you need to think through How can I maximize my opportunities in this geographical location or in this city or region while I'm taking the program and afterwards? Check the entry requirements for the course is the 11th point. Ensure that you meet the academic and any other prerequisite requirements. Sometimes counseling courses require you to do a program before you take them. Some courses would want you to be a mature individual. So they may look at your previous experience. And when you're developing your resume to apply for a counseling program, you want to include aspects of your experience and your interpersonal skills and your social engagements. These are really important and demonstrate a certain level of maturity and social capacities that are important as a counselor and are in some sense a prerequisite to becoming a therapist. Number 12 is support services. Inquire about what support services exist for you while you're taking your studies, such as counseling services for students, or career guidance, or academic support. The 13th level here is the alumni success, the track record of the place that you want to work with. What are their track records? Look at the success stories of the alumni of people that have studied there, and will this provide insight to you of the potential outcomes and impact of the program on your life as a graduate and on your career? By considering all of these factors, you can make a well-informed decision when choosing a counseling course that aligns with your goals and your preferences. We've covered a lot of ground here. Let me cover it very quickly. We've looked at alumni success and track record. We've looked at support services for you as a person studying and learning counseling. We've looked at course structure and content, accreditation and recognition, defining career goals. We've looked at reputation of the institution, the faculty and resources, practical experience. We've looked at delivery mode and location, cost and financial aid, the professional connections that are there as well. I can't emphasize enough that your thinking through each of these questions could have a large impact on your financial future, but also on your interpersonal sense of skills and your sense of integrity as an individual. So think carefully through these things because you're making an investment in you. Counseling is about the development of the person to help other persons in the most human services field that exists on the planet, really. Counseling is a deeply interpersonal and personal endeavor. And knowing that, you need to think carefully about how to orient yourself towards the goals and outcomes, values, beliefs, and attitudes that fit the best model of a human being. We're all striving towards what I would term altruism, in the sense that we want to develop the highest qualities of humanity. The highest attributions of humanity are the developmental aspects of growth, maturity, and wisdom. And these are central and important to the core counseling skills that actualize that wisdom in practical ways that enable us to make a difference in people's lives. I think that, for me, is the most dynamic and invigorating part of being a counselor psychotherapist. Thank you for your time.